we're in a recession. The United States does not have said it formally, but we are in a recession.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
we're in a recession, and typically recessions have lasted like 43 months. Some of them shorter, some of them longer, but typically on average about 43 months. And this is the actual longest phase of prosperity we've had in the 20th century. Because our prosperity clock actually began ticking like 2014 when things started getting cheap and everything coming down. Do you know that prior to right at the beginning of the pandemic, man, inflation was almost less than 1%, right at 1%, bro.
Yeah, it was.
Now it's at 9%.
Mm.
So as interest rates go up, I think the national interest rate right now for mortgages, if I'm not mistaken, I could be off some basis points, ladies and gentlemen. So don't sit up there and catch a conniption. But I think it's somewhere like 5.75%. And let me give you an illustration of how that's so important, right? So let's say right before inflation, jacked up. And let me give you a perspective, all right? So let's just go to 2021 of January, right?
Mm-hmm.
I think Biden won the election in November of 2020, if I'm not mistaken, right? And then he was sworn in office January 2021.
Yeah,
right?
that's right. Mm-hmm.
Somewhere around there, ladies and gentlemen. So in 2021, in Texas, gas in my neighborhood was $1.34 a gallon in January of 2021. Inflation, like I said, was somewhere around about 1%. Interest rates at that point, before the central bank went to zero on the retail side, a great interest rate at that time was like 3.25, 3.50. Okay? Mm-hmm. So let's just say, let's round it down to 3% for a mortgage, right? So January of 2022, guess how much gas was per gallon here? It was $3.79. Just as recent as 3 weeks ago, it got up to $4.79 a gallon.
Mm.
Okay? Now, let's say you wanted to buy, or you bought, let's say you bought a $500,000 house in 2020. In 2020, the interest rate on that would have been 3% if you had excellent credit. Okay, Nick? Okay. That would have been a $2,100 a month mortgage, give or take $50 or so, right?
Mm-hmm.
Now that inflation has kicked in, Nick, at 6%, 5.7, so we're going to round up. So right now, that $500,000 house mortgage payment is now $29.99 for that $500,000 house. Now they're projecting that interest rates are going to go up to 9%. So on that $500,000 house, Nick, your payment will be somewhere around $41.28.
Wow.
Now, why am I illustrating this to you? Here's the important thing to know. So if you buy a house, 98% of people buy houses by the payment. Yes, they look at how much it costs, but they buy a payment, Nick. When they get approved by a bank, the bank tells them, hey, man, you can afford comfortably $2,100 a month. So when the central bank lowered interest rates to the retail banks literally down to zero, the interest rates dropped down to the retail paper buyer 2%. So that person who had the $500,000 house, they could only afford $2,100. They now bought a $750,000 house.
Okay.
Because that $2,100 at 2% could get you close to $750,000 house. Let's call it $700,000, right? But now, when interest rates are reverting back up, that $2,100 house in today can only get you $350,000 house. Because most people aren't putting down 20% on those mortgages. So you can't afford at 6% the $2,999 mortgage, and you surely at 9% can't afford the $4,128. Now, mind you, ladies and gentlemen, that's only your mortgage, principal, and interest. That's not your real estate taxes. That's not your maintenance costs. You see what I'm doing here, Nick?
Yep.
So if the interest rates go up, the value of the house based on the payment you can afford goes up. And then you can afford less. So what does that mean? That person that bought that $700,000 house and their payment is like $2,100, $2,400, they're now in trouble. Because even if they put 20% down, they're financing $400,000. And now you might say, well, hey, DJ, they're still paying the $2,100. You know what goes up though? Their real estate taxes. Because where do you think that house is assessed at? It's assessed at the $700,000. Their water bill goes up. Their gas goes up. Their electricity goes up. Their maintenance goes up. Guess what? I fired my landscape guy. Beginning of this season for landscape last year, because I pay my stuff in advance. I pay like 12, cuts over the period of my, 3 summer months, because I get my grass cut every 2 weeks, right? So I pay 12 payments in advance that averaged out to like $35, right? My landscape person, beginning this season, he jumped right up to $45. Now, I could afford $45, but I got a small yard. You've been to my house, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
I got a small house. I can cut my own grass. My sons can cut my own grass. I'm like, man, $45. So, I did it with him a couple of times. And then so my driveway, because, dirt and stuff, debris. So your driveways, they get dirty. So you power wash them like once every other year. Mm-hmm. So I needed my driveway power washed, and I need the side of my house power washed because for some reason we get like, mildew and stuff that builds on the brick and stuff like that. So we have to get that stuff power washed or we get, fined by the HOA, right? So typically a power wash is like $200. This guy charges me $450. Now, you know what? I fired him. Didn't pay it, right? Mm-hmm. Why is that important? Because now the cost of everything is rising.
Yeah.
So now, even though your mortgage payment is still $2,100 on that $500,000 house because you're paying 2% interest, everything else has risen. Your real estate taxes and all your expenses have gone up 20 to 30%. And if you barely got into that $500,000 house on that payment, you're in trouble. Now, here's the good news. If you sit back and you build up your credit and your cash surplus, that same person that's living in that $500,000 house or that $700,000 house, they get behind on a couple of payments, they now are a great candidate to sell you their house at a discount. And then here's the bad part about it, Nick. In these high-end communities, in these professional middle-class communities, there's a dirty little secret. About 4 to 7% of them are in foreclosure or about to be in foreclosure. So if you sit back in a cut and you're looking for a house right now, hey, don't panic that the price is up here because they're going to come down. Yes, interest rate's going to go up, but that $700,000 house is going to come back down to reality, and it's really going to be like a $450,000 house. Because guess what? When the interest rate went down, that house used to be a $350,000 house, but people were buying sight unseen, paying above market value for houses, so they overvaluated the property. So now if you did your work, planned your plan in the next 6 to 12 months, which I was telling a couple of people that came through the program this past week, and they were looking at getting houses. Oh man, I said, hey, hold tight. You got an 800 credit score? You got $50,000, $60,000, $70,000 in your emergency fund? Guess what? You're going to have to pick of the litter for the houses because now the demand has decreased and it's a surplus in supply. Instead of being a seller's market, it's now a buyer's market. And you might say, well, you can't get no quality. Man, I'm living proof right now. It's going to be a lot of them beautiful houses just got built from the ground up, customized. 4 to 7% of them going to be underwater. And if you got cash and credit, they're going to be more than happy to give you a good deal. and the bank's gonna foreclose on those quicker. Let me give you another secret, and we'll go to the break. The banks are closing foreclosures on the houses with equity. The houses with negative equity, they let them ride. Because they're in the business of making what? Money. So if you got that $700,000 house and it's got 200, equity in it, and you miss 3 payments, they already started foreclose process on you. Conversely, you got that $350,000 house and you'd have missed 6, 7 payments, but you upside down 30,000, they ain't in no rush to foreclose on you. Because as soon as they foreclose on you, guess what they got to do? They got to pay your real estate taxes. So we sit in the cut, ladies and gentlemen. Good credit, good emergency fund, good down payment, and now I get that $700,000 house was really a $450,000 house for $450,000. And even if interest rates are 6%, I still get a great deal, and I still have a $2,100 a month payment.